Now, the EFF says it has written to National Assembly Speaker Thoko Didiza to request the urgent withdrawal of the report of the 2025 fiscal framework. EFF Member of Parliament Sinawo Tambo says that it is critical for the committee to reconvene because the recommendations in the report are not legally binding. And he says the committee has not made it clear whether it has accepted or amended the report. And we speak now to Sinawo Tambo. Thanks for your time. Welcome to Morning Live, Mr. Tambo. So please just explain to us the EFF's position here and also why you are seeking this withdrawal from the tabling of this particular matter. And you say it's due to procedural irregularity. But can you just break that down for us, please?
Thank you and greetings to the viewers, Sakina. So essentially the report by the Standing Committee on Finance on the process that was undergone by the committee regarding the fiscal framework and revenue proposals is guided by the Money Bills Amendment Act and other related matters procedure. And it is our considered view that this section was not utilized efficiently to ensure that there's either an acceptance or amendment of the fiscal framework and revenue proposals by the Standing Committee on Finance, which has those powers to either amend the fiscal framework or accept it as is or reject it. So we are of the view that this process was not followed, and we had continuously said this in the committee, that there must first and foremost be a clear statement, as the Act requires of us as a committee, as to whether we accept the fiscal framework or we're going to amend it. But the process that was followed in the committee is that amendments were made throughout the committee meeting, and the discussions were had, and then there was a draft report that had to be amended by the staff of the committee itself. After the fact, late at night, I think around 10 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken, we then received the report without the reflection of the amendments that were made in the committee, but then with a statement at the end that says that the committee supports the fiscal framework and revenue proposals. Now, this is something that was done in retrospect, wasn't done in the committee itself. So that's the procedural error that we think was done. And that's why we think that it was done incorrectly and should be returned back to the committee for further deliberation and reconsideration.
So what does that mean for today's proceedings? Because there was supposed to be a budget vote today. So where does that leave those proceedings?
Look, I think for the good of all South Africans, it might have delayed these proceedings. It might rescue the people of South Africa from VAT hikes, because there's a narrative going on out there that the African National Congress and Action SA have struck a deal that will mean that the 0.5% VAT hikes are avoided. Now, this is patently untrue, because there's two processes that have occurred. There's a fiscal framework and revenue proposal, which was supported in the committee, including the VAT hikes, and there's the committee report, which is not binding in any way or form in terms of amending the fiscal framework and revenue proposals, which contains the VAT hikes. Now, Action SA misguidedly thinks that the committee reports, where they say that the National Treasury should find an alternative to VAT hikes in 30 days, is binding on the fiscal framework and can amend it. And that's not true. It's only the Money Bills Amendment and Other Related Matters Act procedure that is binding and is able to amend the fiscal framework. So a delay today could actually be in the best interest of the people of South Africa, because as things stand, at the behest of the African National Congress, Action SA and the Inkatha Freedom Party, there are going to be VAT hikes on the 1st of May. And that is because of the numerous procedural errors and processes which were done incorrectly in the Standing Committee of Finance yesterday. So that delay could actually be to the benefit of us all as the people of South Africa.
And the people of South Africa, as you mentioned there, Mr. Tambo, are quite anxious, especially those who depend on social grants from government, those who work for government. And I just think South Africans in general quite concerned of the impact of this particular budget process being dragged along, something that the South African public is not used to. But the concern is that if the parties do not find one another, there could be repercussions that could end up in them not getting paid what is due to them, those who depend on monies from government.
I think as political parties, we all share those anxieties, and we should have shared them more specifically in the Standing Committee of Finance yesterday if we truly care about the people of South Africa, because the committee report, which is separate from the fiscal framework, which we had the power to amend yesterday, had about submissions from a lot of stakeholders, and 97% of those stakeholders said to us that the VAT hike is a regressive tax. They're not in support of the VAT hike, and therefore we should find alternative measures to implement a means to generate the 28 billion rand shortfall that is missing to ensure that our people get the necessary services that they need, including the social relief distress grant. So the ignoring of those stakeholders by yesterday's Standing Committee on Finance is something that is going to throw the South African people into peril. I must reiterate, the VAT hikes as things stand, based on the procedurally flawed process that occurred in the Standing Committee on Finance yesterday, are going to proceed. Any reports regarding a deal that has been struck are patently false. They are referring to a committee report recommendation that is not binding on the fiscal framework and revenue proposal that might pass in Parliament today, which includes VAT hikes. So what the EFF is pursuing is something that is in the best interest of South Africa. A returning of this committee report in the fiscal framework to the Standing Committee on Finance is the only way that we can possibly amend the fiscal framework and get rid of VAT hikes and hopefully rescue HNSA from the mistake they have made and the misunderstanding that they've entered themselves into.
And just finally, has the ANC been in communication with the EFF about this budget and, of course, trying to get you to vote with them on it?
Yes, the African National Congress has had interactions with the whippery of the EFF, the Secretary General of the EFF, in an attempt to make us support the budget. And the same type of misguided deal they struck with the HNSA to try and convince them that there can be a 30-day review based on a committee report of a fiscal framework that is going to be voted on and supported today was the type of deal they tried to strike with us. But we had the necessary parliamentary experience and appreciation of legislation to know that the committee report's recommendation, it does not legislatively have the power to amend the fiscal framework. There's only Section 8.4 of the Money Bills Amendment Procedure and Other Related Matters Act that has the power to amend the fiscal framework, and that's the opportunity we had at yesterday's Standing Committee on Finance. So due to our legislative appreciation of that process, we did not fall into that trap. But those negotiations have been occurring and will likely continue today as well, because the ANC still requires numbers to pass the budget today in Parliament, and they do not have the support of the EFF, they do not have the support of Mkhonto or the Democratic Alliance. So it is going to be a tight vote today. So those negotiations might still be necessary to continue ongoing, and that report might still return to the Standing Committee of Finance, even outside of the process we have entered as the EFF now.
And that was Sinawo Tambo, a Member of Parliament representing the economic freedom fighters, on their view, the latest with regard to that budget vote that's expected to take place in Parliament later today.